people died here, although I should point out indirectly related to the storm. Those numbers coming to us from local authorities here in Puerto Rico. So yeah, those numbers, people won't forget that, and people won't forget the destruction. It just forces you to ask yourself the question, these very, very basic questions that a lot of people, perhaps a lot of our viewers, have not asked themselves in a long time. And of course, I'm not referring to viewers who are in Texas, who are in Florida, because they're affected and they've been affected recently. But the questions are, is my home safe and secure? And as we've been going through the islands, we've seen it really, really depends on what kind of structure you're in. Some of these buildings are made of cement and concrete, and they by and large are secure, like the windows, the roofs might have problems. But when you're talking about houses that are made of wood, which actually are very similar to the houses that are where I live in Atlanta, Georgia, at CNN headquarters, they're made of wood. Houses like that on these islands would not have survived, and those that were like that did not survive. So you have islands where it is just almost impossible to live right now. Think of Barbuda. 95% destruction. 95% of the people's homes there are now uninhabitable. Think of St. Martin, which is a bigger scale, the French side. Because I know you mentioned a number. The number is actually higher on the French side of St. Martin. Remember, it's divided between the French and the Dutch. On the French side, 40,000 people, 65% of homes are uninhabitable. So what do you do when you find yourself in that situation? You have a choice between staying and waiting for months before it's rebuilt, or perhaps just leaving the island and potentially never coming back.
The island you've called home for your entire life. Cyril, thank you so much for your reporting and obviously your personal perspective as someone whose family comes from the region and knows what it's like to deal with generation-defining storms like this. Thank you, Cyril. So ahead for us, a lot of these folks, as you just heard Cyril saying, no power, no water, no homes. After Irma hit Marco Island, which is dealing with no power and no water, you had winds clocking over 100 miles an hour. This is what is left. Let's go to Ed Lavandera. He is near Goodland, Florida for us. What are you seeing, Ed?
Poppy, there were a small group of people who rode out this storm. They're on the shoreline where Hurricane Irma came ashore, and they have quite the story to tell. I'll share that when CNN Newsroom continues.
If you've been turned down for a mortgage,